Hey, welcome back. In today's video, I want to talk about the California housing market. This is part one of my two-part video series I make each and every month regarding the California real estate market. In today's video, we'll talk about what's happening right now regarding home prices, housing inventory, home sales, and much, much more at the statewide level. In a few days, I'll post the update regarding what's happening at the county-wide level. This, by the way, is from the California Association of Realtors. It says California home sales lose steam in March while median home price hits 7-month high. I would add an asterisk there. An increase in prices in March is a seasonal increase. So it's not a big deal to see a 7-month rise in home prices. Anyways, it says California's housing market lost momentum in March as sales fell on a year-over-year basis for the first time in 3 months, after registering back-to-back increases both in January as well as February. So let's talk about this as well. Let me get back to the first page here. This is a slideshow from CAR as well. I drilled this down to about half as many pages because I want to provide a high-level overview about what's happening right now in the California housing market. And by the way, a big increase of inventory levels, which is a night and day difference compared to the past several years. In any case, today's video, as I mentioned right there, is based on existing single-family detached houses, unless otherwise stated. So in other words, we're excluding brand new home construction in today's video, as well as multifamily properties as well and condos. So only looking at existing single-family houses. So sales decreased by 4.4% from 1 year ago, but a bigger decrease compared to 1 month ago, which is pretty alarming. The median sales price just under $855,000. That's a 7.7% gain from 12 months ago. I have a lot more to share regarding home price changes ever since 2010 though. So stay tuned for that. Meanwhile, the month supply is at 2.6 months, still at relatively low levels, but a big increase of 24%. Days in the market, this is a time frame when you list your house for sale until you accept an offer from home buyer. That's at 19 days this March, and that's down by about 21% year over year. All right, let's talk a little bit more regarding home sales because, again, sales decreased on a year-over-year basis, and that was the first year-over-year decrease in closed home sales in 2024. But what I'm focused on right here is this right here, a 7.8% decrease in closed home sales this March compared to February. And last time I checked, we're in the spring home buying season. I would imagine it would be more normal to see an increase in sales in March and of course in April and May, at least on a month-to-month basis. But this March compared to February, down by 7.8%. I really wish that CAR would provide historical data of home sales because there's really no way for me to tell whether or not this 7.8% decrease is normal or abnormal. You guys can pause this video and screenshot it, but it's really hard to tell where March is. So in general, when I look at this chart here, it looks like in general that sales tend to increase in March, and it would be abnormal to see a huge decrease down by 8% from February. But please leave me a comment below with your thoughts regarding this. Looking ahead, if sales continue to retreat or decrease, then look for inventory or the amount of houses for sale in California to increase as well. Plus, we're seeing more new listings hitting the market, and also pending home sales were relatively flat in March. This will all support the growth of inventory levels in the coming months. And of course, please subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll give you the latest updates regarding the California housing market and of course, the housing market in the US in general. All right, let's talk about this as well, because the mix in sales is also impacting the growth rate in the median sold price in California. Now, here's what I mean by this. So here's the percent change this March compared to 1 year ago by price segment. So houses that sold this March in the range of $1 million to just under $2 million, an increase of 6%. Houses that sold for over $2 million, a giant increase of 20%. Whereas all these other price segments are down on a year-over-year basis. In addition, here's a share by price segment as well. So houses that sold for over $1 million, was about 34% of all home sales this March were for over $1 million. And back in March of 2023, that was only 20%. So because we're seeing more luxury home sales, maybe I should not say luxury, because $1 million house in San Francisco or the Bay Area or Los Angeles is a fixer in many areas. So anyways, houses that were selling for over $1 million, that increase is causing the median sold price on a statewide level to also rise as well, or it's at least impacting the prices. So you can see that right here as well. So houses that selling or that have sold for over $1 million and also for over $2 million are up, whereas sales for in the more affordable range are actually going down. This is also something I found to be really interesting as well. So let's kind of look back at May of 2019, right? Pre-COVID levels. Back then, the gray line, which is sales for over $1 million, the blue line is houses that sold for $0 to $499,000. Please leave me a comment below if you guys got a house for free, by the way. Anyways, for less than $500,000, back in May of 2019, out of all the sales that month, the percent there was around 45%. So 45% of all home sales were for less than $500,000 back then, and less than 20% were for over $1 million. Now, fast forward to March, about 34% of all home sales for over $1 million and 25% for less than $500,000. So big picture, the mix in sales is supporting the growth rate in home prices. Also, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video here, talking about an increase of new listings and also a huge decrease in sales, which will likely impact inventory. I should say likely increase inventory because we're seeing less contracts being signed between buyers and sellers. And that is this right here as well. Pending home sales this March compared to March 2023, only increasing by 1.1%, which implies that close home sales in the next 1 to 2 months, because it takes approximately 30 days to close on a house. So you get your offer accepted in California, approximately 30 days later, you can get your keys to your new house. Also, in regards to pending sales, we're also seeing a big increase for over $2 million as well, which is right there. That will also likely support home prices in the next coming months as well, because we're seeing more luxury home sales in California. All right, I have a lot to share regarding prices here, so hope you guys are still watching today's video. And of course, if you guys get any value out of today's video, please hit the like button. I greatly appreciate that. All right. The median sold price, again, just under $855,000, big gains compared to 1 month ago. Seasonal though, which I'll share with you guys, and also a gain of 7.7% from 12 months ago. Just like my previous videos, I want to touch on the changes in home prices and how that compares to years past. So I pulled this from the California Association of Realtors website. I am a member of CAR, and I am able to share this with you guys. Anyways, like I mentioned, $854,490 is the median sale price in California this March. That's the highest since August. However, that is a seasonal increase in prices because home prices tend to increase in the spring and summer months and decrease in the winter months in general. Before I share the year-over-year change as well as the month-to-month change, let's really talk really quickly regarding what happened last month back in February. When I made that video, this 9.7% increase compared to February of 2023 was the biggest year-over-year increase since March of 2022. And as I mentioned 1 month ago, I was doubtful this trend would continue due to an increase in mortgage rates and inventory levels as well. And you can see that right here because we did see an increase still, but not as high compared to February, a gain of 7.7%. However, that is much different compared to what happened in March of 2023, when at that time we saw a decrease by 6.8%. Now it's up by nearly 8%. This also marks the 9th consecutive month of year-over-year gains after we had 8 consecutive decreases in California. This 7.7% gain is lower than the long run average though. So I looked at the historical average in March, going back to 2010, based on my nerdy Excel formula there, is a gain of 9%. So overall, over the past, 14 years, we saw a gain of 9%, whereas this year, only an increase of 7.7%. And like I mentioned last month, the increase in rates and inventory should slow price growth in the coming months, and more on that here in just a little bit. Let's also look at the month-to-month change, because again, we saw a big increase, up by 6% compared to February. And like I note right there, that is a seasonal increase. It's normal to see home prices increase in the spring home buying season. For comparison's sake, home prices, and when I mean home prices, I mean the median sale price, increased by 7.9% from a year ago as the housing market was in recovery mode. February was a different story though, so the data coming in is ever changing. So in February of 2023, compared to January, it was down 2.2%, whereas this February, we saw a gain of 2.2%. And now we're up by 6% compared to the gain we saw last year, up by 7.9%. I also looked at the average February to March change going back to 2010. The average there was an increase of 8.3%, whereas this year, an increase of 6%. So the year-over-year, as well as the month-to-month change, not as high compared to long-run averages. Something I added in today's video, which is different compared to my previous videos, is I want to look at the change from the peak. The all-time record highs of home prices was back in May of 2022 when we were at $893,000. So the peak, which was in May of 2022, compared to the trough, which was February of 2023, was down by $158,000. I know that is impacted by seasonality, but I just want to point that out because now we're only down by $38,000 because home prices have been increasing ever since really the spring months of 2023. In fact, home prices have increased by 16% compared to February's trough. Now we're only down by 4% compared to the all-time record highs. Regarding the year-over-year change, up by 7.7%, I also want to share how that compares to pre-COVID levels. So the change in prices from March of 2019 through March of 2020 was a gain of 8.3%, whereas in 2018 and 19, only an increase of 0.2%. Back then, that was an environment in which rates were increasing, but not by very much. I think in the beginning of 2018, we were at an average 30-year fix at around 4%. And by the time we hit November that year, it increased to about 5%. So a increase, but not a very big change compared to the giant increases we saw in 2022. Also, March 17 through March 18, up by nearly 9%. And just for fun, I added this as well. The correction we had, or I should say the giant correction we had back in 08 and 09, we saw a giant decrease of 39.7%. And lastly, the change in prices over the past 4 years is an increase of 40% as well. On top of that, the average 30-year fixed rate mortgage rate was around 3% back in March of 2020. So home buyers are being hit by higher rates and also elevated prices as well. All right, let's get back to cars slideshow here. Let's talk about the average sale price to final list price ratio. That's at 100%. It has been paid at around 100% ever since really early 2023. This means that on average, for the houses that did sell in March, they sold for the seller's final list price. Now, speaking of houses selling for over list price, around 47% of all houses that sold this February, or this March, I should say, sold for over the seller's asking price, which is higher compared to 12 months ago, but much less than the peak that was set back in April 2022 at 73%. All right, let's talk about inventory levels and the month supply. So the month supply is at 2.6 months. That's a gain from the 2.1 months we saw 1 year ago. But right now, I mean, just looking at 2007, look at that, a 16-month supply. Now it's only at 2.6 months. It's absolutely crazy to see the run up in supply in 05 through 07. Extremely high levels of inventory, which of course crashed the housing market. Active listings or housing inventory has been increasing in February and March, which is seasonal, but it is up from a year ago, but we're way below pre-pandemic levels. So right now, for example, we have around 20,000 houses for sale. At this time in 2018, we had over 40,000 and also over 40,000, approaching 50,000 back in 2019. Also, so far, we're not seeing this giant run up of inventory like we saw in 2022, which is one of the main reasons why home prices decreased so much. But of course, time will tell because again, I'm going to be saying here again that I believe that we'll see inventory increase, which will be seasonal, but we could see a bigger increase due to a lack of contracts being signed and also 7.4% rates that we're seeing in today's market right now. Speaking of active listings, that increased by 24.5% year over year, much different compared to the huge decreases we saw in 2023 and especially in 2020 and 2021. And again, part of the reason of this growth rate of inventory is due to a decrease of home sales and also new listings also increasing as well. This March, it increased by 13.9% from March 2023. So that marks 3 consecutive months of year-over-year gains in the number of newly listed houses. Prior to that, there was 18 consecutive months of decreases. So a huge decrease of new listings in the last half of 2022 and for much of 2023. And now it's actually getting reversed, which is a positive sign if you guys want to buy a house. For the month of March, there was 18,303 new listings. Compare that to the same time frame in 2018, there was 25,604. So even though we're up by 13.9% from 12 months ago, we're still down by 29% from March of 2018. Also less than March of 2019 as well. In regards to the relationship between home sales and new listings, here's a really good snapshot looking at that. Because look at 2020 as well as 2021. The orange bar are closed home sales. The blue lines here are new listings. So back then, we saw a huge increase in sales, which depleted housing inventory because sales outpaced new listings each and every month, more or less, during that time frame, which is much different compared to pre-COVID levels, where it's more normal to see more new listings compared to home sales. So what we saw back in 18 and 19 is exactly what we're seeing right now, whereas new listings are outpacing home sales, but the gap or the difference there is not as great compared to pre-COVID levels. And lastly, let's have a look at the percent of reduced price listings. These are home sellers that list their house for sale, but they have to reduce their asking price because they ask too much for their house, right? So the share of price drops is at 28.4% this March. This is on a downward trend ever since the last half of 2023, which is normal. But I want to share this with you guys as well. Here's a really good snapshot looking at the percent of price drops, This is according to altosresearch.com, a really good website if you guys want to look at analytics regarding the national housing market, each of the states, and also at the city level as well. So according to them, which is more recent data, for the week ended April 19th this year, the share of price drops is at 24%. This is slightly higher compared to last year, but way higher compared to 2022, as well as 2021. Also at about 24% right now. This is roughly on par with April 2020, but still lower than May of 2019, where at that time the share of price drops was at 28%. With that said, thank you so much for watching today's video. I appreciate you. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.